Bradley Manning is like the butterfly which flapped its wings and caused a hurricane. A man privy to his country's secrets who decided to give them away. From Egypt to Libya, we've seen the consequences. Bradley Manning always went against the grain. The kid from a religious family, but outspokenly atheist. Born in conservative, rural Oklahoma, but also gay. A trusted intelligence analyst who ultimately was a hacker. His alleged betrayal and treatment in prison since have divided a nation.
He stole this information not with the intent to give it to the Russians or to give it to the enemy, but to actually make it public. And in many ways, that makes the harm much greater.
This man, for better or worse, is being treated as if he was the man in the iron mask.
It's a violation of his right to a fair trial, and is a continuation of the policies the U.S. government has been employing at Guantanamo Bay and other such sites in the past. And now, it's come home to American citizens.
For 8 months, Bradley Manning has been awaiting trial in a cell at Quantico military base here in Virginia.
Free Bradley Manning! Free Bradley Manning!
It's a focal point for protesters angry at his treatment by the military authorities. They see Manning as a hero who exposed wrong, a political prisoner. To others, passing by the protest, Private Manning is a traitor.
What do you think of Bradley Manning? I think he's where he belongs.
Across the street, Shelley Otto watches the protesters. She's a former soldier and her husband a Marine at the prison where Manning's held. She sees it as most Americans do.
I think if you give up secrets that impact our military when they're operating in a war zone, that you get what you get. You have to be punished. You can't just, hey, here's all our secrets and expect nothing to happen.
But worst case scenario, he gets the death penalty.
Few people have seen Bradley Manning since his arrest. In a Washington suburb, I caught up with David House, a computer researcher and a friend of the soldier. He's visited him 16 times.
Bradley has a very firm grip on ethics and morality. He's not the kind of person to just support one candidate or another, or one party or another, but he really is interested in the truth behind the matter, and what actually ethically is going on behind the scenes and how this affects people around the world and at home. On top of that, Bradley Manning considers himself to be a patriot.
Hi Adrian, it's Matt Prodger from BBC Newsnight. The Bradley Manning story started here, with the man who turned him in. He's now in hiding after getting death threats because of his decision to do so. Adrian Lamo is a convicted computer hacker turned informant with a history of psychiatric illness.
I've been a mental patient. I'm a convicted felon. I have stolen information. I've used drugs.
Yet Lamo is at the heart of the prosecution case. It was to him that Manning allegedly confessed all in conversations via text-based instant messaging. Manning on base in Iraq, Lamo in the US.
The reason that I took the information to military authorities was that I had become convinced that I was dealing with the real thing as a result of statements that Bradley Manning had made to me that I had authenticated with a former special agent in Army counterintelligence.
Let's just say someone I know intimately well has been penetrating U.S. classified networks, miming data like the ones described, and been transferring that data from the classified networks over the air gap onto a commercial network computer, sorting the data, compressing it, encrypting it, and uploading it to a crazy white-haired Aussie who can't seem to stay in one country very long. Crazy white-haired dude equals Julian Assange.
I acted out of what I believed and continue to believe to be the good of the many rather than the good of Bradley Manning.
So do you have some regrets?
I certainly do have regrets. I regret that Bradley Manning came to me after having leaked material. I regret that he is sitting in a cell while Julian Assange is free.
Come on, fire!
Weeks earlier, WikiLeaks had scored its first big hit with a video entitled Collateral Murder, allegedly leaked by Private Manning. Recorded by the US Army, it showed a group of men being gunned down in a Baghdad street by an Apache helicopter.
1-8, clear. Come on.
At least one of the victims was armed, but two of those who died were Reuters journalists, and two young children in a van were seriously wounded. But WikiLeaks had a much bigger scoop on the way. 250,000 classified American diplomatic cables which dished the dirt on everyone from the President of Tunisia to the Duke of York. By the time the revelations hit the newspapers, Bradley Manning had been arrested. Considered a threat to national security, his supporters say he's being treated harshly.
From far away you hear this rattling of chains, very ghostly. Brick has a very long hallway that Bradley's led down, I suppose, and you can hear him coming from very far away. And when he gets to the door of the visitation room, which separated him and I by a pane of bulletproof glass, the door opens and this diminutive figure, he's only 5'3", is led in, set on a metal stool.
Is it your view that he's being punished prior to his trial?
We see someone who's forcibly stopped if he chooses to exercise, someone who is made to stand nude in front of other prisoners in the mornings, someone who is mistreated by his Marine captors after media events or after protests happen near the brig. I think that all of this together is not just a confluence of random events, but actually is a concerted effort on the part of the brig and perhaps the U.S. government to get Bradley Manning to undergo psychological and emotional devastation ahead of his trial.
The Pentagon here says that Bradley Manning is being treated, in fact, like any other maximum security prisoner who poses a risk to himself, despite the fact that Manning, his lawyer, and several military psychiatrists who've seen him say that he is no suicide risk. It's an important debate because while many people believe that Bradley Manning should face justice, many more are disturbed by any suggestion that he may be being punished ahead of his trial. And even the president himself has got involved.
With respect to Private Manning, I have actually asked the Pentagon whether or not the procedures that have been taken in terms of his confinement are appropriate and are meeting our basic standards. They assure me that they are.
President Obama has been criticised for failing to honour a promise to close down Guantanamo Bay, and at least one leading authority on military law sees disturbing parallels between the abuse of foreign prisoners and an American soldier at home.
The amount of time that's gone by and the quite unusual circumstances surrounding nudity and so on that really resonates, for me at least, with Abu Ghraib has gotten me quite concerned, and I think the public is entitled to a better explanation than it's received so far.
Bradley Manning may be sitting in a cell 35 miles away, but his presence is increasingly being felt here in Washington, D.C., and not just because of protests like this one. A spokesman for the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, described his treatment as counterproductive, ridiculous and stupid. What it did was expose divisions within the government about how to handle the case, because the last thing they want to do is to encourage public sympathy for the man accused of the biggest leak of classified documents in American history.
Free Bradley Manning!
Protesting in support of Bradley Manning is Daniel Ellsberg. He knows what it's like to be accused of treachery for leaking secrets. In 1971, he leaked the Pentagon Papers, which showed the American government had lied about the Vietnam War. What do you say to your countrymen who describe Bradley Manning as a traitor?
It's a terrible word for a patriotic American to hear. It's not something you can laugh off easily. He said, "I'm ready to go to prison for life or even be executed to get this information out to the American public and to the world, not just to Americans." He saw America supporting, in these cables, he saw America supporting corrupt dictatorships all over the world. And he felt that Americans should know that, but also the people of that area.
For Daniel Ellsberg and his fellow protesters, supporting Manning is worth getting arrested for, blocking the street outside the White House shortly after our interview. Without Private Manning, they believe, the democratic revolutions of the Middle East would never have happened. But while Bradley Manning languishes in prison, a bigger prize for American prosecutors lies out of reach.
Sorry, no comment this morning. He'll be giving a statement after court.
Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. There's speculation that another reason for Private Manning's harsh treatment is to make him confess that Assange helped him extract the information. There's certainly a desire here in Washington to challenge head-on the idea that the indiscriminate dumping of classified documents is somehow a good thing.
You can do that, but you do it at great peril. The problem is you don't understand the context and the milieu in which the information has been classified. And so something that looks to you as being simple and unclassified or improperly classified may result in all kinds of harm that you can't anticipate.
But others believe Bradley Manning has released a genie from the bottle.
I think that if Bradley Manning is guilty of the allegations against him, he is not an exception. He is a herald of things to come.
I want people to see the truth, regardless of who they are, because without information, you cannot make informed decisions as a public. Or maybe I'm just young, naive, and stupid.
If the charges stick, by the time Bradley Manning is released, he'll no longer be young, and he'll re-enter a world that he has already reshaped.